Today's webinar is about how to rank lead gen brands and get free organic leads. My name's Dan Wardrope, and my special guest today, who I'm very excited to have, is Gert Mellak. How you going, Gert?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
No worries, mate. No worries. Okay, so a lot of you already know me. I run pay-per-lead agencies and also have a education program where I teach people how to run pay-per-lead agencies. And Gert, tell us a little bit about you and your background and your story, and you know how you got into marketing. And I'm keen to hear a little bit of your life story. Let me know.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's make this short. I've been doing SEO for 19 years. I've got a digital marketing agency, and over the years we were doing a lot of Facebook ads, Google ads, and stuff like that, and always SEO. And over the years, SEO has just been growing, getting more clients. We were getting better and better results. So at some point, we focused completely on search marketing, and today we are focused on SEO consulting, audits, and Google ads.
Okay, interesting. So whereabouts are you based, Gert?
I'm based in Madrid. I'm originally from Austria, so but right now I'm based in Madrid.
Okay, nice. And where's your team based? Have you got people with you, or are they a remote based? Obviously, at the moment, it's remote based team. So
right. We started out with in-office employees here, and then even those employees already before COVID preferred to work from home, which is perfectly fine. We've got a few people in the Philippines. We've got people in Serbia, in Russia, in England. So pretty much distributed the team.
Yeah.
And also this way we are working in multiple languages as well.
Oh, nice. Interesting. I'm also interested to hear, you know, a lot of us marketers really started out in marketing. What was your background before you got into SEO? What were you doing?
I was doing web programming for a lot of years, so probably 15, 20 years of web programming. And really started out designing websites when the first websites came out really in Europe, and just found out about everything SEO, Google Ads, etc. by helping my clients and trying to provide add-on services. And then at some point we just focus on those services only.
Okay. Were you employed at that stage, or have you always been your own boss?
I've always been my own boss. I did work in a few companies just to gather some experience or summer jobs, and instead of an Erasmus, I just worked for 6 months in a software company just to get some additional insights of how other companies are working. But I've always been pretty much working for my own clients.
Nice. I like it. All right. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk a little bit about lead gen brands and what we do within our agency. Why I'm investing heavily in SEO, a bit about the Kickstart scheme over here in the UK and what that entails and why it's a big opportunity. And I'm sure there's other opportunities in other parts of the world. And then Gert's going to talk a little bit about the SEO basics, kind of like the 80-20 of SEO marketing. So you guys can take away some of these tips and tricks for your brands that you might be building at the moment. A little bit about the workflow, the tools, and then consistency and some examples that Gert's had over fairly recently. So for those of you who don't know the different ways we kind of run our model within my agency, there's two ways we deliver leads. The first way is, and this is the way we usually start out, it's basically a one-to-one delivery model. So if you imagine a client and their website, then what we do is we build the funnels and we attach that website to their, that funnel to their website using Unbounce. And then we drive traffic to the Unbounce page that we kind of control and look after and do all the split testing on. And basically we look after the ad accounts as well, and we do everything on a one-to-one basis. And that works well because you can leverage the brand. You can also run, you know, Google ads and all sorts of different traffic because you are essentially a marketing agency direct for that business. And it works well, especially when you're starting out. It's how essentially we started out. But when we began to gain a lot more experience and we knew verticals, we knew what funnels worked, we knew what leads converted well, we knew what targeting to go after, we knew which copy worked, we knew which funnels did well. We thought, well, why not kind of like you know, do what some of these big kind of money supermarket type websites are, or, you know, compare the market or whatever. Why don't we build brands in our little sub niches and then drive traffic to our brands and sell the leads to different buyers at different prices and different criteria once those leads are generated from our brand. And I'll show you essentially what it looks like. So the one-to-one lead delivery model, you might have, you know, 5 different ad accounts and 5 different clients. And it's all one-to-one basis. You act directly on behalf of the basis of the client. You use their brand, 1 advertising account per client, unbounced funnel, as I was saying, attached to their website. And essentially they look after their own kind of marketing outside of that scope of works. Okay, they're just, it's their responsibility to do SEO. They most probably don't do it at all. If they do it, they're not usually very good at it. And that's the one-to-one model. All right. And building a brand is kind of what we switched to probably about three or 4 years ago. And these websites have a kind of sexy, what I call a sexy, that's how sad I am as a marketer, but a sexy homepage that speaks to the chosen avatar. So we might, you know, if, say, for example, you know, a lot of you might have seen in the UK, the tom.co.uk website, which is a life insurance website that speaks directly to dads. You know, we've taken that type of model and we do similar for our little sub niches that we go after. And what happens is people kind of, first of all, when the traffic hits these brands with that personality that speaks to that persona, that customer avatar, you know, there's a lot more trust and they convert a lot better. Okay. And not only that, these brands are just unbelievable for landing clients with. So if you picture yourself trying to sell to a one-to-one client, it's much tougher than approaching them and saying, listen, you can just buy some leads from us. And the leads are generated from this website right here. And you send them the URL and maybe a little video of what the funnel kind of looks like. And they're immediately sold, and it's a really good selling tool. And it's worked very well for us over the years. So building a brand is what we base our agency on, really. And one thing that we haven't done, or we kind of have done it kind of on and off over the years for a little bit, is let me take a step back. So what we do is the paid ads point to the brand, and then the brand, we use software that sits behind that. You can use something like Leadbite, GetCake, FLG. There's plenty of tools out there that then distribute the leads to different buyers. So if one buyer's in California, one buyer's in Texas, you can do it based on location. Or if, you know, for example, it's a car finance lead and some clients want bad credit leads and other clients want good credit leads, then you can obviously ask those questions in the funnel and distribute the leads according to the criteria within that funnel. And this is how you know, when you hear people doing thousands of leads per day, this is essentially how it's done, because you just have so many buyers buying different leads at different criteria and different prices and different locations. And that's how you can sell to the whole market. It's a really cool model, and that's what we've based my program on, and also what we do within our agency. And we're one of these people that kind of do as well as teach, if you haven't known already. So when I look at paid ads, you know, for us, it could be Facebook ads. Obviously, that's a big part of our traffic source. It could be YouTube ads. It could be search ads. It could be native ads such as Taboola and Outbrain. It could be discovery ads on Google. It could be, there's so many different types of traffic sources, right? But once you tend to get the funnel working and the hook's good, you can essentially take that hook and the offer to multiple traffic networks, right? And any kind of person that's on this call that has all of their eggs in a Facebook basket needs to upskill pretty soon, because as we've all known, Facebook is very volatile at the moment. All right, so when I talk about upskilling or adding, you know, another egg to your basket, one thing that I've been considering a lot, and we have looked at doing this, is by adding organic traffic here. Okay, because this is a long-term asset. It adds value to your brand. organic leads are probably even better than search ads. In the industry, search ads are always the best ads because there's intent behind those leads, as opposed to someone just seeing an ad in a news feed or on some news website. So when there's intent, it's great, right? But you even have a better quality lead than search ads, and that's people that Google something, know that they don't want to get hit by the search ads. They know what they're doing, and then they scroll down to find organic results, and then they fill in a form, and that's obviously the best kind of quality lead you can get. All right, and over time, Gert's going to talk a little bit about this, obviously later on, but the organic traffic will increase with consistency. And of course, if you've got an agency and you're looking for an exit plan, which most business owners probably should be doing, then you have an exit strategy there where you can package up some of these brands that have a very strong presence, SEO presence that's generating free leads, and your clients will just snap it up. All right, these guys are, some clients spending $100,000 a week, right? So snapping up a website that's getting them free leads for $1 million is not outrageous. Okay, so there's a big incentive to start building your organic presence. There's no doubt about that. And why is SEO such a big part of our plan moving forward? It's because my agency is built on ad skills and being able to build funnels that convert, right? Which is great. As I was saying before, a business built on Facebook ads alone is a worthless business, and a business built on Facebook ads and Google ads is still good. It's better, right? But it's still unless you've got those skills that sit behind the Facebook ads and the Google ads, then it's still relatively worthless. And I'm in this for the long game within my agency, and I feel like it's kind of like with SEO, it's kind of investing in something like index funds that track the stock market. You might get a small return the first year, a small return the second year, and then compound interest starts kicking in. And that's the way I view SEO. And we have about 6 brands, and we're building an SEO presence around all of those, slowly but surely, just building it, just ticking over each week, each year. And, we're going to really reap the benefits for that in a few years' time. So I think, and the reason I did this webinar is because I think it's a great time to hire a team. All right. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but in the UK, they have something called the Kickstart scheme, where you can get university graduates paid for by the government for 25 hours per week for free. And I reckon there's going to be similar in most countries as they try to kickstart their economy. Okay. And Gert, you can tell us a little bit about this later, but you have essentially a kind of mentorship program where I can take my my graduates and my staff and just hand over responsibility, like give each of my students a couple of brands each, and they just run with an SEO plan for the next 6 months. And if these guys are really good, they'll stay on, and if they're not, then I'll find someone else. All right. And Gert is going to be my go-to man to kind of manage these people once they start. So I think it's a great time to hire. There's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of people that are looking for work, and it's time to really grow rather than do the opposite of what most people are doing. It's really time to double down, in my opinion. So how, this is all well and good, right? Some of you listening might be, you might have a team, you might have an agency with staff where this is going to be just an absolute no-brainer for you guys to get started. But some of you other guys might be one-man bands or two-man bands, and you might be like struggling with doing a lot of different stuff, Facebook ads and building funnels, and SEO is another thing, right, to add to the mix and another complicated factor. In fact, one of my kind of mottos is that it's never good to be to try and do too much, because you become a master of none, right? And that's very important in the agency world. Okay, you don't want to get distracted too much, but I thought it would be a good idea to bring Gert on to talk about how can you make this work? What's the 80-20 of SEO? And if you have got some brands that you're that you've got within your agency already, or are you thinking about building one? What's the kind of 80-20? How can we get this done without, you know, masses of work and expensive help and all that type of stuff? So over to you, Gert.
Perfect. Thank you so much. First of all, we're not going to, I try to make this as direct and as upfront as possible. I'm always available for questions if you want to reach out afterwards or on the thread or in comments or wherever. We need to understand that for Google, in order to attract traffic, we need to get content ranking. Google is going to rank content that makes their users happy, because Google was one of the first search engines, or at least essentially the first search engine, to figure out that happy users are going to come back to the same search engine to perform another search. And this is what made Google invest heavily in spam checks, and Google was the first to have decent search results that were not full of spam. Google was the first search engine to discover that if you check out which links exist on the website and which website links to which website, you get a better result if you consider this for rankings. So Google is all about happy users, because happy users come back again and perform another search, might click on ads, give all their information, as we all do, to Google, and Google can then do with it what they want. So in order to make Google users happy, a site must match a search intent. So the search intent is just the real reason. You mentioned this already, Dan, the reason why someone made a search or executed a search in the first place. So this is something that really sets us apart from here in search marketing from disruptive marketing, like it could be on Facebook or YouTube, where I might be in line at a Starbucks cashier and just check out something, and I see an ad for a car finance offer. It might just not be the right moment. But when I go to Google and perform a search, I usually have a few seconds or even minutes in order to check this out, in order to take a look at what's ranking there, what could be relevant here. And people go in with an intent and might just be based on, depending on the search query, either at the top of the funnel, at the bottom of the funnel, about to purchase. We can target those with different types of content. Important here is that users trust high Google rankings. And there are studies out there that on the one hand do show that people still sometimes don't recognize what is an ad and what is an organic search result. But there are other studies that also suggest that people very often skip the Google ads directly and jump to the organic search result, but then come with a lot of trust, because they know that Google selects those results carefully. Google is also working on their end with some official certifications lately for local businesses. So if they pay something, I think, or comply with some process, they get like a badge checked by Google. So Google is heavily testing how to transmit trust to brands, and obviously afterwards sell those badges or sell those certification programs or something like that. They are all about bringing trusted results, because they know that if they send people to a site that then turns out to be a scam, or people are really unhappy with that search result, people might test other search engines the next day. Okay. On the right hand side, you can see here a click-through statistic. And I think this is important just to put things into context. We can see that this is all on page 1. What essentially comes up on page 2 and afterwards doesn't really exist, doesn't really matter, isn't going to affect your bottom line at all. We only focus on page 1. But on page 1, we can see that result number 1 gets about 30% of the clicks. Result number 10 gets 3% of the clicks. Okay, so we need to make sure we come to page 1, but also make sure we come as high as possible, because the difference between one position and the position above it is approximately just roughly 30%. Okay, so every step you take in on the ladder on page 1 is going to give you about an approximate 30% increase in traffic. I even have clients that can tell me exactly, pretty much exactly, their revenue number. Based on their revenue number, they can tell me which ranking they had that day. So they know if it was a number 4 ranking or number 6 ranking just based on the revenue they're making, because they know they're getting much more exposure on number 4 than on number 6.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So content creation workflow, explain about this.
Absolutely. We have said that in order to attract traffic from Google, we need to create content. Okay, so the workflow is pretty much the same and has a very important foundation, which is research. I guess you already are experts in this anyway. In order to make your funnels work, in order to draft your ads, do the copywriting, etc., there's a lot of research going into your target audience, into their pain points, into their worries, their questions and stuff like that. Probably in SEO, it's going to be very similar, or maybe going a little bit deeper, in a sense that we want to figure out exactly how do people phrase their questions. Okay, what's the vocabulary they're using? What are the questions they're raising? What are the issues they're raising? What other brands they talk about when they search for a particular brand as a comparison? So which one is better? Brand A versus brand B, for example. There are specific queries, and the more we can target those search queries based on what people are actually using in their day-to-day research on forums and Quora.com, on Facebook groups, etc., Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, the better we are going to be able to correspond to those phrases with very, very targeted content. Okay, so research is the foundation. Once we know what people are interested in and how they phrase it, we can then start the content creation. Content creation is always based on Google search, and I'm going to introduce a couple of important tools I would suggest you get a little bit later. But first of all, we always start with Google search to see what Google is ranking for that search phrase I would like to rank for. Okay, so I can directly produce a piece of content that has a realistic chance to compete. I'm going to give you an example. If you search for purchasing iPhone or purchase iPhone online, Google is not going to show you a blog article, because Google knows that the search intent screams for a store or Amazon result or product category, something like that. So if you try to rank here with a blog article talking about the iPhone and how cool it is, and maybe an affiliate link to a store where you can put to the Apple store, it's not going to rank because it doesn't fulfill the search intent. So sometimes the search intent is very clear. If you think about insurance comparison Australia, for example, the search intent is pretty clear. People are looking for some sort of table comparing the main products there. Yeah. Sometimes the search intent is not as clear. And this is where we really want to see what Google is ranking, what is this type of content, in order to then produce something similar. Okay, similar. And then if we figure out a way, and very often we see when we go a little bit more segmented and more into detail, we find ways to improve those results. So first of all, we try to match what's ranking, and then see if there's a way to improve it. For example, Dan is doing a very good job with videos around certain topics. So a video is very often a very good way to add additional value to a page. And then if this video is marked up correctly on the page and a few things are taken into account, this is a good boost for this article's topic. Okay. After the creation, we then need to promote this article. The article just sitting on your brand website is not going to help. It's going to take a while anyway for Google to index it, start ranking it, etc. But you definitely want to promote the article. And promotion here means you want to get some signals from social, meaning either run some ads to the article to get it known on social media, get some engagement. If it's a blog post, maybe get some comments and stuff like that. And you also want to have backlinks. Backlinks are links from other sites that are relevant for the topic of this article, that then point to this article as a reference. Okay, so if I talk about the best mobile phone in 2020, sites in the niches of technology, for example, or phones directly, sites specifically targeting iPhone or Samsung or whatever it be, could be very good sources to get links from, link to this article. If the article is valid enough, it's going to happen. Okay, cool. But you definitely want to give these articles some linked love, as they call it very often, to continue your sexy theme. And then Google is going to pick up those signals and is going to consider this article as a real option. Until you get any links to articles, as long as there is some competition, they are not going to rank on page 1 at all.
Yeah. Okay. I like how simple this is. Okay, so research is obviously where you want to be spending your time. Then it's create, then it's promote, tracking, and then optimize. There's 5 stages, right? It's not more complicated than it seems, right? There seems to be a bit of a black art to SEO, but if you look at it from a simplistic point of view, these 5 things is, I imagine, most of the work, right?
Exactly. And the research is usually done once every 6 months or every 12 months, because with the research, you're going to get a whole lot of content you can write about, keywords, competitors and their rankings and stuff like that, that you have a very good list of keywords and topics to create. And then maybe 6 months afterwards, check it in again and do another round of research. So it's really a 4-step process. You rinse and repeat. But once you have the process outlined and you know what you're doing, the results should be coming.
Cool. All right. Tools of the trade.
Tools of the trade, definitely Google number one. Google is going to tell you what Google wants to see. It's just as simple as that. If you want to rank on Google, check out what Google ranks on page 1. And as I said, try to produce something similar. Try to produce something a little bit better if possible. And it's going to help you. I have it in the small letters here below Google Search Console. If you don't have it yet, check it out. It's a free tool from Google where you can add your website, and it's going to give you information about the search performance, meaning which URLs come up, how often, what's the click-through rate from search engine, your URLs showing up in search and people clicking on those, which keywords does Google show your site for, and a lot of other things. You definitely want to get Google Search Console. Just sign up for it. You can either authenticate it, I think, via WordPress directly, or you can add a small record to the DNS settings of your domain and then get authenticated, and Google is going to give you all the information they have and obviously want to share about your website. And very often you get interesting feedback. They also try to help webmasters by giving them proactive suggestions about usability issues on mobile phones, for example, where it's hard to click on some mobile phone issue. So whatever Google can do to make users happy, they are doing. They're helping us a lot, obviously to make money on their own, but definitely don't underestimate the power of having your site in Google Search Console and following the guidelines they lay out there. The next tool I would suggest, if you can get just one paid tool, I spared myself from the free tools. There are obviously free substitutes for a lot of things. If you're serious about SEO, you can probably spend $150, $200 a month on a couple of very, very good tools that are going to help you along the way. One of those tools is Ahrefs. For me, this is the SEO pocket knife. I myself use this probably 28 times every day. On my analyzed clients, it gives a very quick overview. It allows you to research keywords, research content topics, even for social media. It has some features in there. It has a site audit feature where you get like a program crawling your website and pointing out technical issues. I really should get paid by Ahrefs because I recommend it all the time, but unfortunately I'm not. I need to suggest this on Twitter to the CMO. And the second tool is Surfer SEO. So Surfer SEO, what they do, and I did this manually years ago, and I'm really happy they came up with this tool. They compare an article you might have with the top ranking websites and show you what are the similarities, what are the differences. So essentially show you the gap between what you have and what your competitors have, and then tell you, look, you didn't tackle this topic, or you should use that keyword a little bit more often based on what's ranking out there. They give you very related search query questions, for example, people ask in this niche. They tell you a lot about the competitors that are trying to rank here and with what length of articles, for example. So you can really produce something that right from day one has a realistic chance to rank. And this is important because we see a lot of sites just creating content they know is interesting for the target audience, and this is perfectly fine, but then don't expect it to rank on Google. Okay, if you want to rank something on Google, you need to make sure that your article can compare with what's ranking out there in terms of value and topic coverage and depth and length. Okay, you're not going to outrank a 2,000 words article where Google wants to see between 2,000 and 4,000 words with a 400 word summary. It's just not going to happen.
Cool. All right.
Consistency is very important. Okay, so consistent execution is crucial. In the graphic, you see a client we took over in June. They just had a 70% ranking drop after a Google update. They never cared about SEO for years, right? So they just build content and they know their audience very well. So the content already tackled on many important pain points of their audience. but they never cared about SEO, and never caring about SEO in their case meant they never cared about search intent. They never cared about design, user experience, site speed, a lot of things that come in here. I mentioned this site in the context of consistency because this is probably our A-level student, if you want to say it like this, in execution. So these guys are amazing. The owner started out alone. I think they have now 3 people with them focusing on one website and the execution of our suggestions and content creation, and also build a few links once in a while on their end, in addition to us, and things like those. So you can see the graphic, what essentially happened from below 100K, probably 65,000 to on the way to 200,000. They haven't seen a major ranking drop ever since. That took more than a couple of weeks maybe, and this is really based on a consistent execution over more than a year now, every week, every month, of the right things. Let's put it this way. Okay, in SEO you can probably do 200 things. If you run an automatic SEO audit on your website, it's going to point out a lot of things, but I can guarantee that 80% of those things are not going to matter. They are not going to make you rank better. They're just fixes that need to be done. The same as if I eat a carrot today, it's not going to make my body healthier. Neither does one single workout probably. I need to have consistency in nutrition, and I need to have consistency in execution of the right things in SEO. Okay, so the content, we also need to see that Google does ranking algorithm updates, meaning they heavily shake up rankings sometimes because they just figured out, based on all the signals they collect, that what used to make users happy doesn't do it anymore. So to give you an example, you might remember 2-3 years ago, probably, where a lot of websites, and most websites, tended to have like a very big slider image on top, or a full screen video, where you then had to scroll down to start watching start consuming the content, reading the article. But wherever you landed, you had like a very big, sometimes even on an animated slider image, where you had like 3 or 4 slides coming up. At some point, Google figured out that people are not too happy about this. What we see today, for example, and this is a tip in case you already tried to rank something, people are very interested in getting either the information right away at the beginning, or at least the confirmation that this page is going to give them exactly the answer they're looking for. So having people scroll down just because it looks nicer to have a slider on top is definitely like you should in the foot right now. Okay, so behavior changes. Google is very quick in adapting to different search intents or expectations. If you just think about our current period in the middle of a pandemic, if you searched for virus in January and you searched for virus in the middle of March, the results on Google are vastly different. Okay, and this is because Google is very quick to adjust to changed your expectations. So on top of their main algorithm updates, they do like 3 or 4 very big ones every year. And we are just expecting the next one, to be honest. Not sure when this is going to come. We're seeing strange things these days. They do updates every single day. Okay, every single day they roll up to, I don't know, I've heard like 10 to 50 somewhere, minor updates to the algorithm at least, just to quickly adjust to what users seem to be expecting on a query by query basis. And this is important. Queries for insurance are not going to be dealt with as a collective. It's individual queries that Google deals with. So what's the best car insurance is going to be dealt with individually and separately from car insurance comparison UK. Okay, so those 2 keywords where we could expect, okay, this is the same industry, this should follow similar rules. Well, it doesn't. There are some rules that probably apply, and one of them is EAT. And EAT is something Google focuses on more and more. We're going to go into a little bit more detail. Here, what Google tries to do is to figure out if a site is really trustworthy and has a justification to talk about very important issues in order to prevent fake news, in order to prevent scams, and so on. We see also in SEO that brands are more and more important. And this is where the long-term approach comes in. my theory, I haven't contrasted this and probably nobody's going to confirm it, but what I see over the years is that Google is getting more and more scared to send people to a site that turns out to not be legit in their space. Okay, so they more and more trust brands, because if a brand is strong and has a lot of mentions and a lot of citations, a lot of links, a lot of social feedback, etc., it's just easier to trust this brand than if you send people to just a new e-commerce site that has just opened up and that might turn out to be a scam. So whatever you can do for your brand is definitely going to be worthwhile. Can you build a YouTube channel? Can you get some additional brand exposure? Can you get the brand known with ads so more people search for this brand? So branded searches is definitely something Google factors in order to determine how important and trustworthy a brand's website is. So there's a lot of things we need to take into account, and I usually talk about filling buckets. Okay, so when doing SEO, you need to fill a lot of buckets. There is not one single bucket and everything is going to change. But we definitely want to fill the site speed bucket, make the site fast, make the content good, make the user experience good, make the design good, etc. Sorry, I didn't explain EIT. EIT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. We're going to come back to this afterwards, but thank you for the question.
Cool. All right.
Here's a case study just to give you an idea before we jump into some practical advice. Case study of what's possible. This is just one of our clients. They are getting 300 to 350 leads per day. I have to say, especially on this webinar, that this is opt-ins, so email opt-ins. They then receive an email sequence and are further qualified. This is not a pre-qualification before the lead is there, but you can just get an idea about what's really possible with a site. And this is the site I told you about before. They essentially more than doubled the leads since they have been with us. And then we see conversion rates up to 15% on some URLs, meaning people landing on certain URLs convert with up to 15% from Google search, meaning free leads, essentially.
Nice.
This is another one, local office refurbishment site here in Madrid. They got 350 leads in the last 9 months, essentially keeping them busy enough. It's a small company with just a few people. We hardly do anything for them because they don't really have the budget. They can't grow enough to invest heavily in SEO. The only thing we do is that we create a couple of blog posts every month and create a few links to those blog posts. That's everything. Okay, so they're getting 350 leads in 9 months, enough to get enough quotes out there, proposals out there, get enough work to have a few people on their team, on their staff. But this is scalable big time. The moment they give me green light to scale this, we are going to be the leading refurbishment company in Spain.
Nice.
This is an online course, just to give you an additional example, an online course focusing on an instrument, teaching how to play an instrument. Again, lead magnet opt-ins. They got 4,000 leads since June 2020. Just to give you a perspective, what's really possible. As long as you get the lead and conversion optimization right, and you drive targeted traffic to a quality content offer, a lot of things are possible. And those leads are then again further qualified with an email sequence in this case.
Nice.
So let's talk a little bit more practical information. I'm going to go with an example I know in your niche is interesting, which is roofing. Target research here for me would comprehend a search on Google around roofing. What are roofing sites talking about? I always have like a notepad open when I do these kinds of researches, and I just visit websites, take note of themes, how do they call certain things, roofing companies themselves, but also then go in and check on Google, what do people talk about on Twitter, on YouTube, on Quora.com about roofing. You can get most of those pieces of information from Google directly, adding Quora to the search query simply. But then also head over to Quora and make specific searches for questions around roofing, and make a note of all the ways people refer to roofing companies, roofing contractors, who is the best roofing contractor in Melbourne, for example, or which geographies are interesting, are there big brands people mention and ask for reviews or experience with certain brands. So whatever I can get my hands on, and we're doing this for a lot of topics. We just start with chess as a topic. We have been doing this for internet providers. We've been doing this for instruments. We've been doing this for podcasting the other day. So we really do this for a lot of topics, and the goal is, we call this a target research. So we really want to figure out what are our target searches for, and especially how they search for, with which vocabulary, and what are the phrases, what are the questions, what are the pain points they talk about. Okay. We want to have also their worries, obviously. What are they worried about? What are their objections towards the service? Because tackling an objection in the content, or writing a piece of content around the objection, could be an interesting entry point where you just resolve this objection and bring people to the next step in their possible journey before converting the lead.
Okay.
Okay. Obviously, you also want to take into account what those people might have heard. So like create what they call an empathy map. Okay, where you just see, okay, what other information have they heard? What are there that relates to the fears they have, relates to what they might have read on the internet or seen in terms of ads, what they have experienced from their neighbors about roofing issues or something like that.
Yeah,
okay?
we do that for our industries as well.
Perfect. I thought so.
Yeah. Yep, we get up on the board and have our staffs, well, we used to, it's a virtual board now, and we talk about what they see, what they hear, what they feel. And
excellent.
It's the kind of like dialogue that they're hearing, right? It's the
right. I think the difference here with SEO is only that we focus very much on the words. Okay, so we would focus very much on what are the words they use and what are the phrases they use. Yeah. Whereas you probably go more for the overall content, I assume.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. So embody your avatar, figure out.
Absolutely, and get the keywords from their activity online.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Okay. An important part, and this has changed over time in the last 10 years. Obviously, we have more and more competition on Google, right? So more and more big brands are investing heavily in search. We have a lot also, depending on the search intent. Google might pull like not really providers, but rather informational sites giving more general information. So we want to make sure we pick the right battles here. We can't compete with everything. We can't compete with every term. As an example, you can see here that if I type in roofing, and this is from Ahrefs, for example, this analysis from the tool I mentioned before, you get an idea about what Google wants to rank here. And I just want to draw your attention to two columns here. One is called DR, which is called the domain rating. And the other one is the last one, that's domains. I forgot the arrow there. Domains means how many different websites link to this article. Okay. And this gives me an idea that with a couple of exceptions that are doing particularly well, I would need at least 120, 150 links pointing to this article I want to rank in order to get into page 1 here. Because we definitely want to, on competitive niches, you can expect people do a lot of content optimization already. So just by providing a better content, we're not going to rank. We're probably going to have to match pretty much the average of the linking domains here in order to be eligible for page 1. So Google does even consider us, okay? And the DR refers to domain rating, and this depends. The domain rating is a metric Ahrefs creates based on the links that point to a domain. So the better your brand is, the more important the links are that you get from important magazines, authorities, Chamber of Commerce, some Forbes magazine, just to name a few, or some other high authority sites, the higher your domain rating is going to be. So if I have a domain rating of 20, competing in this space of domain ratings of 50, 80, and 90, is just not going to be realistic. So roofing is not going to be a topic I'm going to be particularly trying to rank for.
Okay. All right.
What I can do is I can find a different angle and more segmented angle. So for example, roofing company Des Moines might not have, or definitely has not so many searches being executed on Google, but you can see the difference in competition. If you check out the domains column now, the last one, with 20 links, I would already be the search result that has the most links on the top 10. I still need a decent domain rating. So usually when you have like a 45, 50 domain rating or something like this, things get a lot easier. But you can see this number 6 iowaroof.com, for example, which is obviously relevant enough for a search in Des Moines. Has only a domain rating of 4. This is a very new page, but obviously very, very relevant. And Google just decided to pull it into the top 10 search results. So relevance is the most important thing we need to make sure we have in order to get the targeting right.
Cool.
Another important thing here I want to mention, and this is really something that comes from all the site audits we do on existing sites, is content structure. So what we should not have on our site if we're building this out as an asset is tons and tons of articles we just publish every week without any proper overall structure or idea where this should be going. And this is something we see on audits every single day. When we do site audits, we see sites that have been growing over 7 years, had decent traffic, maybe in 2017, 2018 still, and then just dropped off. Why did they drop off? Because you can only write about so many different things in your niche, right? So they just wanted to publish a new blog post every day. This is also a little bit comes from the misconception that you need to do fresh content every single week in order to rank on Google, which isn't true. You want to have a consistent frequency, but it's just not a basic requirement. Those pages probably could have stopped in 2018 and spent the last 2 years just optimizing the content they had in order to make sure they correspond to what Google expects nowadays. So we've got 2 clients, for example, where the only thing we really do for them right now is find what used to rank in 2018 and update it to the new standards, and then see that rankings come back very quickly because they're just an established brand. If you build this out new, you want to have a content structure in mind. So you want to do your research, you want to do a list of keywords and create a list of keywords and make sure you know what you want to write about. But then once you line this up, and we use a very simple spreadsheet structure, I'm going to show you in a minute, you line this up, you can easily group those topics into what we call content clusters. And the difference between a content cluster and a normal article or blog category maybe is that a content cluster has specifically interlinked articles. And the content cluster, we are going to see this, has usually a pillar content piece. So a pillar article, this could be an article about roofing in general. I wouldn't try to rank it in this case because we've seen it's not going to be possible to get into the page 1, but it could be roofing in Iowa, for example. Roofing in Iowa could be my pillar content. And then I would have a lot of pieces of content around roofing, specifically targeting my audience in Iowa. And all this together would create a content cluster I might be ranking for, because Google is very happy to send people into a content cluster in the middle into one article, because all those articles are going to be linked together. So even if Google doesn't know exactly what's the search intent, probably within the content cluster, there's going to be enough information to make this user happy. So we see this is a structure that really makes sense. And also once you plan this out, as I'm going to show you in a minute, you're going to make sure, and this is important, that you only tackle every single search intent in one URL, in one article. If you give Google multiple articles they could choose from, they are not going to rank you on page 1. And I've got probably hundreds of sites as a proof for that. So you need to make sure Google can exactly understand what your articles are targeting. And if you have multiple articles targeting the same thing and you need this for, I don't know, social media purposes, etc., you need to make sure that Google understands which of those articles is the one you really want to rank, so they can ignore the rest. And there are tactics like canonicalization, as we call it, to make sure that's the case.
Cool. Okay. So the content structure.
Exactly. This is the content map, as we call it, or the content structure document we use every day. So this is easy enough to copy, I guess, or you can ask me for a template if you want. What we do here is we line up all the topics. Okay, so we line up all the topics, and we have in a column C, what is the pillar article? So the pillar topic. So this could be roofing in Iowa. This could be roofing, I don't know, contractors or whatever. It depends on the topic where you say, okay, this is like the overall group that's then going to be like the parent group for all the other articles I'm going to create. This depends on the target research you have been doing before that. And then you line up what are going to be the supporting articles. And as you can see, sometimes in row 10 and 11 here, for example, there's even an additional level. There shouldn't be more. So a general rule here, and this is important, is that any content on your website shouldn't be take more than 5 clicks from the homepage to get to. Otherwise, the structure is not good enough, and a lot of other things are not going to happen, like link choose flow and a lot of other things on a little bit higher level. We might be talking about at some point. Okay, so make sure it doesn't take more than 3 clicks to reach any piece of content you want to rank. And this is also for usability purposes. Nobody wants to do 6 or 8 clicks in order to reach a certain piece of content, because it's on the you have to click on the blog and the category, and on the 5th page maybe the article comes up. This is not the usability level a standard we expect today. So with this document, you would line up all the topics even before you write it. And this way, when you write the content piece, you already know where it goes. You already know what's its pillar content, or what you already know which articles are going below it in the hierarchy. So you can mention those topics and then link to those articles, and make sure that no single article is just sitting on the website, but everything is interlinked in an appropriate way with an intent behind it.
Cool. Okay. So the step-by-step brand website.
Website. Imagine you want to now create a brand website. There are 2 options, and one is, I think, especially interesting for you. You can start fresh. You can get a domain name, install WordPress or whatever you want to use, and create your website. But there is another faster option. Okay, so especially if you have a business that's already generating money, my suggestion would be to consider purchasing an existing website in this space. And the reason for this is what's called the Google sandbox. This is a phenomena Google officially denies that it exists. In SEO, we've seen this time and again that it does exist, and this is just like a period of time that has to pass until Google starts ranking a website. And why this is the case is that because Google has not collected enough signals to trust this website to start showing it to users. Okay, if you put yourself into Google's shoes, and this is one of the most important SEO tips here probably, if you find a new website, how would you know that this website is going to make your users happy? Just assessing the content and comparing it to top ranking sites is probably not going to be enough. So you're going to start collecting all kinds of information. Google might have, I don't know if they have a direct line to Facebook and get some engagement metrics, and vice versa. They exchange some data, or there are other third-party tools that collect data from toolbars, from plugins, from I don't know which tracking codes, etc. So Google is going to collect signals over a period of time, and depending on whether the site gets more or less traffic, it's going to go a little bit faster or less fast. But they're going to collect signals, and once they are okay with this site, which sometimes takes a month, sometimes 3 months or 5, they're going to start ranking this site on page 8 for a few terms maybe, or on page 1 for their brand name and stuff like that. If you have an existing site, you probably already have passed this sandbox period. You already probably have some rankings in the niche you are talking about. So if you're in the roofing niche, there might be sites being sold in the roofing niche. Google already knows those sites. You don't need to be careful, because sites can have a negative link profile or can have been penalized in Google and maybe are sold because they don't have any visibility anymore. So you want to have someone checking the site out and making sure it's really trustworthy and it doesn't have any red flags being raised. But if you find a good site here, it's definitely worth jumping over this sandbox period and over this initial period where you need to build some links and get some trust and get some social media ads and stuff like that going. So Google has enough signals to start ranking it, and going with a site that maybe already has been around for 3 years. This might be a roofing company's site. So Google already associates this, this domain with their website with the roofing industry. This is a head start you can definitely consider. And sometimes for a few $1,000s, you get very, very decent sites already. Okay, I've purchased once a site for $500 and it was a good head start, right? I had a client, I recommended to a client to purchase one for 2,000 lately, just to get a head start because the domain was so good. Definitely consider not starting fresh if you don't have this brand site yet, and consider starting with something that already gets traffic. We just have a client that purchased a website in the affiliate space. So he's an affiliate marketer. He purchased a website. I don't know the price, but he's getting 500 visitors every day in his niche already, right from the start. So just by making a little bit of an upfront investment, many sites are based on affiliate deals. So you with the pay per lead model and adding those sites, connecting them to your funnel might be very quick in increasing the existing revenue they are making with affiliates by getting targeted leads right from the start, and then taking it from there, optimizing the site, get an audit done, get like a roadmap on what needs to be done on the site to further improve it, and just continue the process that has already been there.
Interesting. Cool.
Okay, so consistent publishing, I think, is important because it keeps like the entire momentum going. It's not a requirement to rank well if you have 2 articles per week, but you definitely want to have a consistent rhythm where you say, okay, either I produce 2 articles or I revise 2 articles. Okay, but have like a benchmark you work towards to, so to not just be publishing and updating occasionally, but have a very, very consistent routine here. I would also recommend you present it as a business. The site should be presented as a business. It shouldn't be just a content site where you can read articles, but with no contact information, no phone number, no address, no anything, because Google is going to be more and more reluctant to trust this site and is not going to rank it just because of the fear that this site might not be trustworthy. And this is what brings me back to the EAT: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So you need to justify why you are prepared to give this piece of advice. And especially this is the case in finance, insurance, medicine, security, safety, and well-being. Why is this the case? There is an abbreviation that's called YMYL, and Google calls this the why, your money, your life space. So we know already that Google wants to make users happy. Conclusion, Google doesn't want to make users sad. Next conclusion, what would make us most sad probably would be if we get bad finance or medical advice. Okay, so Google decided at some point that people are definitely more inclined to require trustworthy information when it comes to these spaces. And in turn, it's going to get harder and harder to rank a site that doesn't justify why they are experts in this niche in order to get ranked.
Okay.
Okay.
So what type of trustworthiness do you need in like, say, a life insurance brand that you're building, like tom.co.uk? Like what would you need to have there? I mean, is it accreditation?
You would probably do the research then on a niche by niche basis and see what people have that are ranking well. This has come up, I think, a couple of years ago. I think they have this in their official Google Quality Raters guidelines. So it's not something in the algorithm, it's something Google Quality Raters are asked to specifically care about in order to check out how they can reference that the content has been published by trusted sources. So on medical sites, this might be showing the author of a piece and then linking to their social media, where you can see they are a doctor, linking to the hospital, maybe giving them real trust. Because otherwise, with my SEO knowledge, I could be giving medical advice, and the end user that comes through Google couldn't know that my advice is worthless because I've got no idea, right?
Yeah.
So we want to back the information up as much as we can. And this is also where I say, okay, present it as a business, present yourself as with a name, address, and phone number. So people can call, even if this is a call center that's taking the call and it leaves you a note. It should be presented as a real trustworthy business. And you can even add it to Google My Business. If you have a virtual office address, for example, add it to Google My Business, get this certified, get like a few reviews maybe going, etc. What else you can do, whatever you can do about strengthening your brand, so to speak, making it look more trustworthy is going to help you rank.
Cool. All right. Link building.
Link building is, we already talked about this in the promotion step. We want links pointing to pieces of content. We want links from relevant websites. So relevance is the most important thing we need to take care about. There are other metrics, and you obviously want to have high authority links and stuff like that. But we have seen that roofing company from Iowa was doing very well with fewer links and fewer authority than the other competitors, just because they were so relevant for this search query. Okay, so you want to get links. You want to get links from relevant sources in the space you're in. You want to vary the anchor text. So the anchor text is the clickable link text on a website. I stress this because a few years ago, what we would do, it was just common practice. You would put in the keyword as in anchor text and then link to your target website. You can't do this anymore. There are even people being penalized for doing this and get like manual penalties from Google for doing this. So you want to make it look as natural as possible. So links, ideally, in an ideal world, your content would be so good that people would naturally link to it. Okay.
Yeah.
In many niches, this is not going to happen. So if you have the new iPhone, people are going to link to it. If you're a local roofing company in London, it's probably not going to happen, because there's just we have social media if we want to recommend a company, but links are probably not going to happen naturally. Okay, so we want to kind of simulate a natural behavior and trying to raise as few red flags as possible in the link building process. But links are in any niche still very important as a signal towards Google for the relevance and importance of a site in a specific niche. Important to mention here also is negative SEO. Negative SEO would mean competitors trying to bring down a site by creating negative, unrelated links on purpose. And this is something Google is more and more concerned about. They even have some cases finally where they admitted that this does happen sometimes. Most of the times it doesn't work. What people are trying here, and I've seen this on a few clients, most of the times it's completely without any effect, but I've seen this working, and I think in the last 2 years once, is that people would just create completely unrelated links, purchase on Fiverr for $20, purchase 5,000 links, send them to their competitors with completely unrelated contexts, and Google might get confused. Okay, so this is, sometimes it's very obvious and Google can just figure it out. Sometimes spammers are getting very, very smart about this. So imagine you're trying to rank for roofing in Iowa and you get thousands of links over a few months from the context of roofing in London. Google would probably get confused at some point whether you're relevant for Iowa or you're relevant for London, just to give an example here. So we want to make sure we know the links that are coming in. We track which kind of links are pointing to our site, and protect the site as much as possible by trying to get those links removed if they're completely unrelated and we are suspicious that Google might take them into account, or file a so-called disavow file to Google via Google Search Console, where we specifically ask Google to ignore those links because they were not created by us. Okay. In general, in link building, I'm a very big believer in the client focusing on content while outsourcing the link building. And the reason is that because, first of all, focus on content because our clients are the experts in their field. We can do a lot of research, but probably not necessarily reach the level of experience in this niche as our clients have. At the same time, doing link building in-house is very difficult because it requires a lot of experience. It requires a lot of connections to existing websites. As an agency, every agency that does link building has like a growing catalog of sites and contacts and people we can contact to get links. So very often a good option, at least to start out, is to outsource the process of link building while focusing on the content creation.
Yeah, okay. Where would you be able to buy or get link building help? Like what services are out there that do that?
Most SEO agencies, like we obviously as well, offer link building as a service.
Yeah.
So you get different packages or ask for a custom package and just try to figure out what could be relevant for your site. Important here to mention, I think, is that social signals are the justification that the site can get links. So don't go out and buy links if you haven't had any social feedback or social signals happening first, because it's just a natural thing to happen to these days, that you get some mentions or comments or shares on social media first, and then your site attracts links, which would be just the natural thing that happens.
Okay, cool. All right. Bi-weekly.
This is just something I would want to recommend. We've developed a framework. I call this framework ERICA, with the abbreviations being evolution, research, interlinking, content, and action steps. And the idea here is to have a framework you follow where you know that you're going to fill all the buckets I was initially mentioning on a consistent rhythm. So we already talked about consistency as a good basic requirement for a good SEO strategy that's going to get results, but you want to make sure you don't forget about certain parts on this consistent routine. So forgetting about the link part is not going to lead to results. Forgetting about the content part, creating content, updating content, etc., is not going to get you very far. If you forget about the competition we check in the evolution part of this framework, usually you have no idea what you can leverage. So very often and drop in rankings from competitors can help you get an idea what you can do better in order to take over their rankings, for example. So there is a lot of things we want to do. There's an R stands for research. So there's a lot of research going into an SEO strategy, and it's it has proven to be the best written to do this or revise this every couple of weeks. So what we do with clients, for example, is that we have a call every couple of weeks where we go through this framework. We prepare those calls from a strategic point of view and then instruct their team on what to follow and what are the next steps, what content should be created, which content should be updated, just also as a way to protect your asset. So if you purchase a website or you build a website over time, you've got a lot of money and a lot of resources flowing into this. You want to protect your asset. And if you don't protect it, what happens is that you just lose traffic. And if you have suddenly like 10% the traffic you had a couple of years ago, just because you did not protect the asset, meaning doing the necessary updates, optimizing the site, upgrading the design, working on site speed, things like those, the asset is going to lose value before it really increases and provides to be a good asset for your business.
Nice. All right.
Yep, that's about my part. You can I've got a book on Amazon about this framework I was talking about if you want, but you can also get it directly on seoleverage.com/book/Erica for free as a PDF download if you want. Definitely, if you have any questions after this session, reach out to me. My email address is on the screen. I'm also on Facebook. I would love to get in touch with you if you have any questions.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's do a bit of a Q&A now. I'm intrigued. Obviously, I was talking about hiring a couple of graduates out of university, and I mean the job description's actually just been finalized today, and we're about to start hiring. So, what would the process look like if I wanted to, give? And how many brands could these kids essentially look after, with your team kind of guiding them and helping them? What's your kind of recommendation, and how would that look?
My recommendation would be not to give a person more than 2 sites to look after.
Yeah.
Just because this person should be creating content, they should know the competition, they should have a good idea about how this works, be updated, have a very good knowledge about the website they're dealing with. And then what we would do probably is, instead of maybe every couple of weeks, every 4 weeks, deal with one website. So every couple of weeks we have a call, but in one call we deal with one website and one call we deal with the second one, for example. If this go a little bit slower maybe, but still get streamlined, we keep those people busy. We tell them what is the next focus. We keep them accountable because we go through the homework essentially we gave them last time and check whether this has been produced or not. And then we also have, like right now is at spreadsheets, it's soon going to be a web application where we track everything. So you as an owner can log in and see how things are going, what are the rankings, what's the progress, what are the actions that have been executed in the last weeks, and get an idea of control without having to be on every single call.
Interesting. And how much does this service cost? Like if I wanted, like per student, what's the cost to do this?
The cost for this is 690 euros right now per month, which covers a couple of strategy calls every month, plus obviously email support if anything comes up in between. But essentially a couple of strategy calls where we keep people busy. Also leverage this time to show them how we use the couple of tools we suggest that are purchased, and train them on the tools essentially as well.
So to me, that's unbelievable value because I get a couple of staff from the government, which obviously I'll be taking them on if they're good after their 6-month trial ends. And then I get you, basically you and your team managing them and making sure, keeping them accountable, giving them homework. And for me, it's like an unbelievable time to double down, as I was saying before. So yeah, I'm quite excited about that. All right, so has anyone got any questions? John saying, should we never use keyword as the anchor text now? This is very different from what has been the norm. I'm not sure that's what you meant.
It was the norm to use the keyword you want to rank as an anchor text. What we tried to do today is to make it a little bit less obvious. So if I want to rank for roofing in Iowa, I wouldn't call it the roofing in Iowa, the anchor text, but I would probably try to fit in roofing or fit in Iowa in the anchor text in the links and distribute this a little bit more. You would probably just use this, maybe the exact match anchor text as we call it once, and then try to vary it a little bit.
Okay, cool. Eric's asking Gert's full name. It's Gert Mellak. That's correct, isn't it?
Yep. Just typing this in.
Yep, the service is an absolute bargain. Ron's asking, of course it is, 690 euro, very cheap. Ron's asking, please clarify, lead gen campaigns are add to landing page to quiz to opt in. Can you rank a funnel since you don't have ongoing content or is there only a separate branded website that's outside of a funnel? Basically, can you rank a funnel? I think you're saying, Ron, that a lot of our paid funnels are kind of add to quiz to results page to thank you page type stuff. And I think you're asking, can you kind of rank one of those paid funnels? I mean, I certainly would not be trying to do that. I don't know, Gert, what you think. I'd kind of be separating out my my paid funnel with the organic content, and then have a call to action on the organic content that leads to the lead funnel.
I think a good way to think about it is, do you think that if you rank your funnel page directly, you are a search result that makes Google users happy compared to what else they see out there? And it's probably not going to be the case. So very often we also see this with single page websites. It's just not the user experience people would want. So it's really hard to rank landing pages in general that are completely isolated from a website.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. All right. Do EMDs still work? I don't know what that means.
EMD means exact match domains. So this would mean roofinginiowa.com. This used to give you a very big boost. So people go crazy when you now search for purchasing in a domain name, you're going to see hundreds or thousands of those because people went crazy purchasing every single location for roofing, for example, as a domain, as exact match domain name. I would say it doesn't help per se, but I would consider that we also have click-through rates on Google, not only on Facebook ads. So click-through rate on Google means that the search result I see has to indicate that this is going to answer my question. And this is where exact match domains sometimes can be a good idea, where I say, okay, I absolutely need a high click-through rate for my strategy. and the highest click-through rate can be with an exact match domain. So
Yeah.
there is a reason why I put SEO in my SEO leverage domain.
Yeah.
Because I want people to automatically associate this brand with SEO. Okay, so the same as I see a lot of lead generation brands out there having lead gen in their domain name, for example. Okay, so this is just a visual effect and it's going to lead to higher click-through rates. You're not going to rank higher just because you have this keyword in the domain, but you might rank higher as a side effect of people being more attracted to your search result.
Yeah. All right, Tom's asked a good question. When's SEO not worth it? I've done some basic research in one of his niches and currently working in the competition. It's ridiculous. Think Money, Saving Supermarket, Money Expert, the government websites. It'd be extremely expensive for the time and financial cost to even try and compete. And even then, it takes years in our site still in minority. Would love to hear what your thoughts on this. How important are backlinks? How would you recommend building them? Traditionally found buying them to be the most cost effective without building an outreach team.
Right, definitely two very, very good questions. You definitely want to pick your battles. And this is where I want to stress a little bit the EAT thing. Okay, so you're going to have a harder time ranking certain topics than others. You want to do your research. You want to check what is ranking in the niche. And is there a realistic chance to get in there for a few keywords or key phrases I know my audience is researching or is searching for? So we also have the same situation in the affiliate marketing, for example, where people also create authority websites, but need to do research if it's really realistic to get a ranking. Can you really compete with what's out there in terms of content, in terms of trustworthiness and authority, in terms of backlinks? Is there a realistic chance to compete? And you just probably a good idea could be to find like a sub niche maybe within your main niche, and then the competition is going to be lower. But it is true that finance, for example, is a very competitive space and has been for a lot of years. Not only for lead gen, lawyers, for example, legal space is a very competitive space. So you definitely want to know what you can go after. You're not going to go after lawyer leads maybe, but you go after divorce lawyer leads or something more specific to a particular thing, and maybe then decide rather than to create one big site, create 3 smaller ones, but very niche specific.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Anthony's asked, what's the process for hiring using the Kickstart campaign? Anthony, we're still kind of figuring this out, but originally when it came out, you had to hire 30 people. So it was ridiculous. Like, unless you're a big company, you couldn't really do it. And the minimum hiring requirement was 30 before you're approved. But then what happened is the local Chamber of Commerce and other kind of business hubs grouped everyone together, and now you can actually just go to them and they manage the bulk hiring, I believe. And that's the way we're doing it. So you can hire through your local Chamber of Commerce and other kind of networking hubs and places like that. And I believe it is fairly easy. We just sent off the form today, actually. So the wheels are in motion for us. Yeah, that's what Alexander just said. Needed 30 openings to qualify. I think I've just answered that. All right, Ron, should content be written or is video good as well? I think that's pretty obvious, right? Written and video, whatever helps the user and makes them happy.
Exactly. An important point here is that what we often see is just a plain transcription of the video, which is not going to rank. Okay, so you want to focus on the article as if it was an article, and the video if it was only a video, and then just put this together, and the video would just be an add-on for the article and vice versa.
Yeah.
You're not going to rank well with the transcription of the video.
Interesting. Why is that?
Because it's just not the same user experience. Imagine you have the same on podcasts, for example. Imagine a podcast that lasts 40 minutes, and you transcribe it. The experience reading this podcast is not the same as a well-structured, well-written article.
Yeah.
Okay, and the video, the same thing. We expect different things on an article, on a written article, than on a video.
Yeah. So this information is too advanced. Where would you suggest one would go to speed up the process and method of thinking? Don't quite understand that question.
Not sure. Can you clarify this a little bit more?
Yeah, we'll move on to the next one. I think you can make a similar funnel connected to the rank homepage as a pop-up. I think that's what I was saying. If you want to have a really big, what do you call it? big bit of content, a pillar bit of content, then you'd link to other articles from that pillar, but you'd also have the call to actions within each of those articles to some kind of a lead capture funnel, which is the way I would do it. Gary's saying we build bespoke WordPress websites and rank those pages with great content, then link our lead capture page of funnels from the SEO landing page content, which is exactly what I just said. Good call, Gary. Eric, if we provide SEO lead gen and want to show up in GMB3 pack, would you suggest only virtual address and never an actual physical address? Or is there ever a case of physical address would be okay if you don't have an actual office?
Okay, clarifying, the GMB3 pack is the local pack that comes up, the local block that comes up in the search results. If you search for something with a local search intent, as we call it. So search for a pizza delivery at 8 o'clock at night, and you're going to get like a local result that's called the local 3 pack, where Google just pulls 3 relevant local results and presents them in a specific way in Google search result. When I talked about virtual offices, I was referring to the services that give you a physical address, and you can use this. You are not going to be there, but you're going to put the address on your website. So your website has a physical address. We had this with a project a few years ago in New York City, still based in Spain. We had a New York City address. We could receive mail in New York City. They would scan this and send this to us. In case it arrived, they would give us the Google My Business authentication code, so we could get a Google My Business listing as if we were a local business. Nobody's going to be able to track if this is a virtual office, because this is an office building usually with probably hundreds of companies there. And this would probably be enough.
Yeah, interesting. Kevin's asked, should I use PRs, press releases, for good backlinks?
I would use press releases not as a link building strategy, but it could be interesting to start out and just say, okay, we have launched this company, make it as realistic as possible. Press releases are not meant to be used to attract links. And the thing is that it's essentially a duplication of the same content across the web, which has very little value. I would think it's interesting to use press releases whenever there is something new on your site and you get some additional signals to Google. For example, yeah, we have just launched our book, and then we do a press release, or we just launched this new service, or we have this absolutely great filter across the top roofing companies in Iowa, and make this like an announcement, use it as a PR, and then go with it, but don't use PR press releases as an ongoing link building strategy.
Yeah. Tom's asking again, how important are backlinks and how would you recommend building them? Traditionally found buying them to be more cost effective.
Correct. There are marketplaces out there where you can buy links. My personal preference is to hire an agency that's focusing on this. Okay, because the agency is going to do a lot of things you're probably not going to be able to do because you don't have the necessary tools like spam checks and possible penalization checks. See if those pages are part of a bigger link network that's just there because they want to build links and stuff like that. If you just go to a catalog or a marketplace and purchase links, it's not going to probably get the same quality checks. And some marketplaces don't even tell you the domain before. They just give you like an abbreviation and the key metrics, but they don't tell you what domain it is. So you can't even do those checks in advance. I would go with a trusted agency, find someone you really trust in this space. And make sure they're 100% transparent about what they do, which links they create, how they're going to help you, and get them to the links, explain to you what's their process in order to screen those links before they build them. Because as I said, negative SEO is a thing. Negative links can hurt your asset and you want to protect it as much as possible.
Yeah, cool. Would interviews rank as good content, i.e. interviewing roofing contractors?
It's a very good point. We need to see it from the user's perspective. Do you think users are going to look for interviews with the roofing companies? Then it would be a good content. Okay.
Testimonials, maybe.
Testimonials, maybe, exactly. Reviews as well, best roofing companies and stuff like that. And if you have this content and then from there link to an interview, it's probably good value. Yeah. But if we want to know if a content is going to be good for SEO, we need to find a search intent it covers. And the search intent sometimes with the ideas we have doesn't exist.
Cool. Would you ever suggest modeling the content structure of the top 1 to 3 content pieces in the SERP since they're already ranking top 3?
Definitely, you model what's ranking high on Google.
Yeah.
And in general, and if you see this is part of a content cluster, definitely model the content cluster. Don't copy the content, never copy the content, write it originally on your site.
Yeah.
But definitely model what's working. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. If there is something that's working already and you can model the same structure, definitely do so without copying.
Okay, cool. Sam's asked more about your services and link building and stuff. So I reckon you just get in contact with Gert if you want to talk.
Yeah, just take a look at SEOleverage.com if you want. Appreciate the interest. We have a few link packages, generic link packages there, and otherwise just reach out to me and we have a conversation.
Yeah. All right, cool. How does this relate to trustworthiness on branded site that refers lead to several clients? How will Google consider a site of that nature? I'm not quite sure what you mean there. You're basically saying what happens after the person hits the website and then the lead is sold to different businesses, right? I guess that's the same as any kind of comparison website or whatever. And I'd say that the content and what you have on the website trumps kind of anything that goes on commercially in the background. Is that what you think, Gert? I mean, it's a tough question to answer, that one.
I think for SEO, it's not relevant what happens after you get the leads, if this is the question.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? Because what you need to do is you need to make sure that you tick all the boxes in terms of trustworthiness you can tick. And part of this is obviously a privacy policy and this legal disclaimer and the cookie banner and all those things. Google is not going to be able to judge on what happens after you capture the lead.
Yeah, okay. How much content is needed in a highly competitive niche on a monthly basis initially, and how long would it take to see some organic results, in your opinion? I think that's the million-dollar question, right? And any buying age domains.
You can probably expect that with 3-4 articles on the website, you're not going to do a lot, just because the 3 or 4 articles are not going to cover enough possible search intents to have some leverage. I try to get people think around a number of 50 articles for a start, and try to get those 50 articles about 50 different angles about a topic.
Yeah.
And this is probably a manageable number also in terms of promotion, link building, ongoing optimization and stuff like that. But then obviously we have clients that have 1,500 articles on their site, right?
Yeah.
Just because they just discovered more and more search intents. We are always with our clients, for example, comparing their site with other sites in their space, get new content ideas, see where other sites are getting traffic, build this, etc. And it's going to grow afterwards. I wouldn't expect this site to do particularly well below 20, 30 articles at least, because it's just probably not going to be the same user experience as a site that can internally link to a lot of other sites. And also at the same time, we also want to, the links that point to one article that then points to another one is going to have additional power for this other article. So the more articles you have that get links and get social feedback and then internally link to another one, the stronger the overall structure is.
Yeah, kind of like a spider web, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Kev said you suggest using expired domains as a good boost for your site. What about using them reappointed as a source of backlinks?
It's a possible way to redirect an expired domains. I wasn't talking about expired domains. I was talking about purchasing websites directly. So there are sites out there where you can purchase websites. Flipper.com is probably the most well-known one, but there is also what was this Empire? I don't know what something with Empire was. I can find this afterwards, where you can purchase websites. I would suggest purchasing a website that has content on it and always had content on it.
Yeah,
because this is going to have the highest relevance. PBNs, private blog networks, are the second question. This is a very risky strategy. I know it still works. I'm rather conservative in the SEO space, probably. I would not point PBNs directly to the website, but what you can do is, Empire Flippers, thank you, Sam. You can point PBN links maybe to another article that then links to your site, and you're going to be one layer safer, so to speak.
Sounds like kind of playing the system a little bit.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We're starting to really geek out now with the SEO questions, and I've actually got to go. So that's probably going to be all for today. Gert, you've been amazing. Great content. Very knowledgeable. Thank you all for your help, and hopefully people got some value from this webinar. You guys know where to reach Gert if you want to get in touch with him. If you are in the UK or you're in other countries where these kind of employment offers are available, then you should be doubling down right now. I definitely am. I hope you take my advice.
Thank you.
I'll leave you there, guys. Gert, thanks very much again. I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dan, for having me.
Bye-bye.